Welcome, everyone. I can see people I know and then some new names and faces too. How fabulous to spend this little bit of the day. Perhaps it's lunchtime, perhaps it's a little break with you all, up-leveling our skills in being a really great mentor. I guarantee in this room, every single one of you have either benefited from a mentor in your life or been that mentor in somebody else's life and really helped them on their journey. I know in my journey, mentors have played a really big part. Some of them have been formal programs I've been a part of, and others, it's just who you meet along the journey. I would say also that I've been a mentor to Sam at times here at Speakers Institute, and then the other way around, he's been a mentor to me as well. But what is this idea of mentoring? I'd love you to put into the chat right now, what comes to mind when you think of mentoring and being a mentor? Maybe a person comes to mind, or a benefit of mentoring comes to mind. Let's see. The sharing of your experience that others don't have yet. I love that, Bobby. Yeah. Oh, Fiona, the trusted guide. Yes, Yoda would have been one of my mentors along my journey as a trusted guide if I had been a Padawan apprentice Jedi. Advice, someone who keeps you accountable as well is really good. Mutual learning, some hand-holding, passing knowledge on, coming thick and fast in here. In the ministry, your nickname is Yoda. Yida, Bobby, or is that a Miss Yida? Or is that a meant to be Yoda? You've come up with a brand new name. There we go. From now on, you'll be known as Yida, the great mentor. So we want to take ourselves through what is a great mentor and then share some of my knowledge at the same time. And of course, at Speakers Institute Corporate, we actually do this as a program now, which is really exciting. We've been able to go into organizations and help build their skills as mentors, and they have then implemented their own internal mentoring program within their organizations, which is a really great thing to see. So to me, mentors are all about being a guide along that journey. We all have found ourselves in a moment when we're new to a job, we're new to a profession, we're new to a new chapter in our lives. It's a new business. I know I was just talking with a friend of mine. She's over in the US and she's just starting her first business. And all of the ideas are swirling around and what should I do first and then what? And I don't know who to talk to. And just by sharing a few little moments of experience from my first time of setting up businesses and the next, it just helped to relieve a little of the anxiety and see the one next step forward, which is often what a great mentor really does for us. I found this great little image, and to me, it sort of says a little bit about the wise mentors in our lives who can kind of say, whoa, just hold a little moment. You can just let it come to you in a way. I love that. I can't quite do it with a Mr Miyagi voice, though. I'm sure it would take on a whole other level if I could do that. But the essence is there. Someone who's providing a little bit of the wise counsel when it's needed, because you may be full of the energy and enthusiasm and wanting to take things forward. So who are your favorite mentors then? I would love to see in the chat. And to start with, I want us to start with some favorite mentors that are well-known, movie kind of characters. Are you a Dumbledore fan, a Yoda fan, a Mr Miyagi fan? Deva Wears Prada. She was somewhat of a mentor in that particular program. So we know that Bobby, whether he's a fan of Yoda or not, great ones there. Clearly some people in business and in things that you want to do. We often look for mentors who are just those few more steps ahead of us. They've done the things that we want to do and we would look up to. Robin Williams, Fiona. Yes. Is there a particular character, maybe Mrs. Doubtfire, that he played? She was a little bit of a mentor to the children when she was there. Winston Churchill. There's some very impressive people here that we'd love to have as our mentors. Sometimes they can be everyday people in our lives at the same time. I am definitely a Yoda one, and I will often use his nuggets of wisdom with my children along that journey. So what actually is mentoring? So there is a difference. To me, the mentoring is about that guide very much and the sharing of the experience. If you think a manager, a coach, and a mentor, often as leaders, and many of you, if not all of you, are leaders in some way, we need a balance of all of those skills ultimately. There are times when we need to do managing, times when we need to coach, and times when we actually need to mentor a little more. Or you're a part of a mentoring program and you're sort of seeing, well, what role will I be playing here, sitting in this area? We find the managers are generally all about tell. Yeah, follow this process, come in and check the boxes. This is how we do it. Here's the KPIs. Coaches are really great at questions. They may not necessarily have the experience, have done something you want to do, nor work with you directly, but they are exceptionally gifted at asking really great questions of you. Whereas mentors for us are very much more about that sharing of experience, sharing of wisdom. Now, there are a whole lot of different modes that it can take. It can be quite formal. I know that I've been a part of or created mentoring programs along my journey. I've done young entrepreneur programs that I used to run and connect young entrepreneurs with more experienced mentors. Mentoring program for young women early in their careers at the same time. So that's the very formal style. You'll get the informal, where you just might want to learn from someone and ask them a few questions. It's not part of a set program, but there's still a role to play there. Or you might have others coming to you saying, do you mind if I just ask you a few questions about something? It's quite casual. Or there's the sort of you don't even realize you're mentoring, and it's just you start to share your experience, and that sets you into a role of being a mentor. We want to do that well when it's our chance to do it, but particularly if you're part of a formal program, you want to know that the formal program is done really well, but then what's your role? So from our experience, particularly my own, if you're setting up a mentoring program and helping to train people within that at the same time, you want to make sure that this cycle, there's almost support, training, structure around parts of this, especially if you're asking people to be involved in it who are already very busy. You know, that if you're looking for mentors, they're already busy. They've already got a lot of things to do. So how can you make it a really good process for them? Mentoring generally goes through similar to teams. You have the formation stage, then you get really clear on what you're going to work on together in terms of the roadmap. Based on your experience, you want to make sure you know what you're going to be talking about. You'll then start to see the growth as they put the things into place. And then it's ultimately about passing it on. How can you empower them so they're doing it without you after that point? They're not reliant on you. How is it so that then that next stage, they're carrying the torch almost in a way, and so that then it transitions, particularly at the end of a structured program? That part is often missed. We often do the first part really well and get everyone matched up and give them the resources and things, but then that last part, not so well. So even within yourselves, if you are part of a program, really think about how can I be along the journey sharing an experience, but really empowering them to take it further themselves. And maybe even passing it forward themselves at the same time. Now, that first phase, it's all about clarity. As a successful mentor, how can you get super clear on what they want to work on with you in the time you have? Now, if it's informal, as every now and again, you've got a little bit of fluidity. Part of a structured program, we want to be clear. How much time do we have? What is it that we really want to work on? And therefore, where can we put our energies best? Where can I share my experiences best? Well, that's where you'll see the best growth and that productivity if we're nice and clear around that. And in that formation phase and clarity, you'll be able to let them know what you can share your experiences on and have experience in, and maybe what's not in your area. But a great mentor is also about connecting them with others who they can learn from, introducing them to your network. So we said at the beginning, we'll look at what to do and not to do. Some of this, I would say, is quite common sense, but it's always good to check on our foundations. Never assume. As a mentor, as a person, as a professional, as a leader, right? How do we make sure we're not assuming? We're going to ask. Ask lots of questions at the beginning. What we don't want to do in terms of our mentoring is just tell them what to do. It's not about telling them what to do. We just saw Sam in that opening bit. Even when you're like doing story, it's about story showing. Similar with mentoring, it's not about tell, it's about sharing. Can I share an experience I've had that might be similar? And you can see what you might get from that. Often I've also found that mentors focus purely on the professional, the skills they need to build, and how can we build those skills. But the more that I've done mentoring, the more I've seen that actually, if we can, with skill, move and start looking in that personal side, often that's fueling why the professional is not getting the growth that they want, and that might be holding them back. So see, where can we link them and get curious about those areas at the same time. And of course, not great to be coming unprepared. We want to take this, particularly if it's a formal program, being prepared. If it's informal and it's casual, of course not. You're just going to share an experience that you had. But the other one is, it's not all about you in mentoring. So the more you're asking them about them and not dominating that conversation, it will grow a whole lot more. You will learn more. So I spend a lot of my time in mentoring, they asking lots of questions and then actually mirroring back what I'm hearing at the same time, or literally like role-playing conversations they need to have. So I was part of a University of Sydney program recently, and it was with students still at university, but they were in minority groups. And so they were part of a program in order to broaden their networks in a way. And I found once we got down to the key things she needed to work on, it was actually just practicing some of the conversations to have in order to sound a little bit more professional. In order to, similar with what we do a lot of in Speakers Institute and Speakers Institute Corporate, we don't often get that chance to just role play and get that feedback back again. So if you're helping them to pitch something, if you're helping them to push themselves forward, those sorts of practice is where a lot of the quality and the value can come from. Now, there are different kinds of mentoring styles. It'll be interesting to see where you spend most of your time, or where you naturally fit as a mentor. Have a quick little look at that. You can grab a screenshot if you want to. In our program, we definitely go into a lot more detail in this, and we identify which ones are yours. The key to being a successful mentor is having that self-awareness first. Now, a great mentor is actually going to do all of those, isn't it? If you think to yourself, a great leader will most likely need to be doing all of those. So if you find that you go straight to advisor, that's great, and giving advice, but maybe you want to broaden your scope and go, oh, maybe I could challenge them a little more. Maybe I could get better at introducing them to my network. Maybe I could get better at asking lots of questions. So it's how do you move across the range of those sorts of skills and types there that builds your toolbox? Because you end up with a different mentee in front of you every single time, I find. Sometimes you get the really quiet ones and they don't really come forth very much. So you have to work on your affirmation and your questioning and your curiosity. Others who come in and are like, this is what I do. Can you introduce me to this person? I need to learn this. And so it's a lot more, they're ready to push and go forward. Different person every time. Humans are these wonderful things. This was something we live by at Speakers Institute Corporate and in Speakers Institute, but I find it's actually a core component of being a successful mentor as well. I'm going to come off share. So connection before content. What do we think that means, if you could pop it into the chat, in regards to being a great mentor? Connection before content. Building trust, building rapport. Yes. Great. No one cares how much you know till they know how much you care. Yeah. Humans are humans, even with those the mentees who come in and they know exactly what they want and introduce me to this person. It's still a human there, the affirmation, the curiosity about them, learning more about them. It literally has worked for me every single time where I go further in knowing that person and build that connection each and every time before sharing, advising, checking on goals, like all of those sorts of things. The more that will build greater connection and trust. And I know that in some of the young entrepreneur programs, the mentoring that was set up through those programs has actually still continued afterwards. That's when you know it's been a really great mentoring relationship. Becomes very informal afterwards rather than formal, but you know that connection has really been made. So always first, how do I make that connection? How do I build that trust? How do I remind ourselves that that trust is there? Now, there are some things that are really easy to spot in terms of where I can direct my best mentoring to help someone, because sometimes they're not very sure. I just know I'm stuck, but I don't know why. I just know my career is not really going where I want it to go. Or I just know I've got this idea for a business, but I'm not sure what to do next, compared to others who are very, very sure. So it's easy to spot skills, experience, like gaps here. Those are the easy things to sort of notice. Okay, you don't know how to do social media. Let's learn. Maybe I don't know, but I'll introduce you to someone who does. Okay, you're not sure how to put together a pitch to go out and be a part of an incubator as an entrepreneur. All right, let's do that and put a pitch together. Same with experience and network, introducing people who they may not know, that can really help them, all these external factors. I find that those are sort of like the easy things that you'll get to quite quickly around what might be holding them back and their growth and where they want to go to. But a great mentor is able to then have the self awareness to know that actually this side is also on their own journey where the biggest growth has come from, and find ways of noticing that within a mentee. Where are what's really limiting them in terms of a belief structure or a story that might keep coming up? What sort of repeating patterns that we're starting to see over the course of our sessions together? Perhaps and that's where I ask a lot about family life. Once I've got the connection and trust, and parents and what sort of jobs they have, and with that University of Sydney student, that was actually where a lot of the stagnation was expectations from parents, and a lot of the stories that had come through conditioning that meant that she wasn't allowed to do certain things. We really just looked at those and how to do it respectfully at the same time, of course. So a great mentor looks at what questions can I ask, what personal shares, where have I held a limiting belief, what have I done to go through it, and therefore what results have I got? It's a little bit like with your children. You can't just tell them straight away, don't do that. You have to. There was a time when a lot of us here at Speakers Institute, that nice little line, there was this one time when ... I remember. It's those sorts of stories that go beyond skills that I did or the person that I met and actually go to the underneath. When I realized I didn't believe I was good enough, and it really hit me. And this is what I've had to do in order to overcome that. That's where you'll get really big growth for someone, as we all know, because we've done it ourselves in our own lives. So it's the same within mentoring. So some great questions that can spark this critical thinking, this self-reflection, and have them go a little bit deeper. When an issue arises, there's something they want you to work on in the session. It's always really good to have an agenda. There's some of the basics as well. What are we going to work on? And have that beforehand. We can ask them, so what's your reasoning? Take me through how you got to that point, how you got to that solution. We can ask scale questions in regards to that information. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how reliable is the information? Because we know that sometimes the reasoning takes us into the stories being told in their minds, and then asking them for actual evidence of it, they can then actually go, oh, It's not actually true, and helps them to rethink that. But similarly, in terms of skills or people in the network. So how reliable is the information you've got? Because they might be asking you, how do I market test whether this idea is good or not? Yeah, and they might have come to a conclusion, and then you're asking about the reasoning around that market testing and the size of the market and how much money they'll need for it or something. Share with me why you think it's considered to be believable. Good questions that get just a little deeper under the skin, a little bit further there. Is there anything you haven't considered? Take multiple perspectives. How can I help them to take all these different perspectives around a certain issue? It's not just about telling and giving an answer straight away. There'll come a time when you can share your experience. Every situation is also a little different as well. Your experience might have been 20 years ago, and things have shifted a lot now. How can we help them to learn these sorts of skills with greater questions to ask? Is there an alternative? Can we get deeper into what the actual problem is that you're solving? And maybe are there, if we're looking at certain trajectories, any unintended consequences? It's just a good brainstorm to do together. You can add your ideas at the same time in how you're seeing it, because that's where wisdom can really come through there. So you can grab a little snapshot of that one. You never know, you might find yourself in a mentoring situation in the next hour, day, and you go, oh, let's use these set of questions here as well. But I also find these three key things are a great way of assisting with that personal insight. It's being a mirror. So when they're sharing something, an experience, an issue, a challenge, whatever it might be, I often like to just mirror it back to them. I'm a big pen and paper writing at the same time as someone's talking to me, and I'll always preface that at the beginning. As you talk, I'll be taking notes. I love mirroring back the words they use. Do you realize you said can't 10 times? Do you realize that? Or may I offer an observation? I've noticed that each time that you're really scratching your ear every single time, whatever it might be. How can you just be a mirror first? And it's not no judgment around it yet. Nothing really there. It's just being a mirror at the same time. Then the 5 whys, really simple. Ask why 5 times. So they'll come with an issue or a problem. Then you'll go, okay, tell me about why. Then their answer, find a way of turning that next one into a why question again. Within 5 whys, you're very likely to get further down into the core problem, the core issue. Then you can look at how can we deal with that part that will then flood all the way up to the top. And then, of course, may I share a personal experience with you? I always like the invitation in it. May I offer? Is it okay? May I share? That's my language I like to use. Yours might be different. You'll find what works for you, your style, the relationship you have. Some people are very, very direct, others not. Your style is why they've come to you as a mentor, a mentee, and to get mentoring from you. But those 3 are just like really great ways to go a little bit further and give them that deep insight. Because insight like that stays with you forever. That's powerful mentoring. But we always do it on my core principles, and that I set up with them at the beginning. It's always doing it at looking at ourselves and turning inward, turning eyes in with compassionate self-curiosity. I like to call it being the David Attenborough of your own life. He looks at nature with the most beautiful curiosity and interest. How can we do that of our own internal worlds, of our own inner things that are going on? Because then it doesn't become about I'm terrible at and lack and gaps. It actually becomes more about, oh, that's interesting. What could we do about that? That's really, oh, there I go again. How interesting. Why was that? And asking ourselves the 5 whys. So that's a very quick look at a few of the areas that we go into in our Speakers Institute corporate mentoring program. So we cover all of these building blocks where people get to have practice at it, role playing. We set up personal development plans that can be used within your mentoring at the same time. Go further on those mentoring modes, what's natural for you, Where do you want to extend to? How can we build some of those questioning skills? Even amplifying strengths is another great way of helping someone to use their strengths and amplifying those in order to get that next lot of growth that they really want in their lives. It's a really powerful program. I love doing this one. Now we have to end mentoring with a little bit of Mr. Miyagi wisdom. I hope you agree with me. Even as a mentor and being a successful mentor, first learn to stand, then fly. Yeah. So if it's your first time starting to mentor, give yourself some grace. First, learn to stand before becoming this amazing mentor that can fly. It's a good reminder for us along that journey. But also, if it comes from inside, that answer, I often use this one, it's usually the right one. It's pretty much always the right one if it's really come from your inside. If you get rid of all those other bits on the outside and it's come from that burning fire within, it's really right. But mentors have to ask really good questions. What question can you ask in that next mentoring session that will really take someone to their next level? So it's been a pleasure to take you through very quickly over some lunch and learn together. Pop into the chat right now. What's one thing you have really, it's maybe been a light bulb or a strategy or an idea that has stood out for you today in up-leveling your own skills as a mentor, or perhaps you're going to implement as part of a mentoring program that you're bringing into your workplace at the same time? Tell me, what is something that really stood out for you? Great, different mentoring styles. Good. Give yourself some grace, Renata. As a mentor and the mentee, we're all on this human journey doing the best. The 5 whys. Yeah, super simple. Just let's ask this why 5 times. Good questions, compassionate self-curiosity. It's a nice one for ourselves as others. And being sure to complete it, Debbie. Great. Yeah. When we're part of that mentoring program, what's the end part? How does that really do well?